Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is it really true? Is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Gino, my mic's a little loud. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smart ass than a dumbass. Because, guys, 34 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, 34 years later, through the grace of God, I can honestly say now I'm a smart ass. Yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey, and that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this. There are a lot of people out there struggling, even with health issues. So I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm also a recovery coach. All my services to you are free. Please, please reach out. I want everyone to know someone is listening. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, www.geripetito.com, and you can find my book on audio with my voice. Okay, Simon & Schuster wanted to put my book to audio with someone else's voice. I couldn't have that. So my producer, Ruben Rodriguez, part owner of Hamilton Radio and owner of Iron Horse Films, is now doing audiobooks with your voice. So if there are any authors out there interested, please, please reach out. And listen, guys, if you truly, truly, truly can't afford my book, please reach out to me about that as well. I'm here to help you. Before I introduce my guest, I would like to just give a shout out to a couple of my sponsors today. We have John Bishop, aka Johnny B, singer-songwriter, host of the Entertainment Luncheon South, a nonprofit network created for the creative. He's also in the Joey D and Johnny B Rock and Oldies band. He's also solo. But I want to give a big thank you and a shout out to him and his wife, Linny. Once a month, they put on this luncheon, and it's by invite only. It's $20. You get a great lunch, and you have incredible entertainment. And they don't keep a penny of it. And they promote us like nobody else does. They're amazing, so thank you for that. And then I've got Stormin Norman Selden, 732-245-4777, www.storminnormanselden.com, booking dozens of attractions for concerts and performances on venues of all sizes. He's got from a 5 to 12 piece band. He is a beast on keyboards, guys. He was here recently live, and he's amazing. A lot of people don't know this, but he helped get Larry Chance from the Earls, the song Remember Then, back in the day started. Larry, you were like family. We all love and miss you, and I know you're singing in heaven with Elvis, baby. So rest in peace, Angel. He's also doing, Storman's now doing private lessons for anyone that's interested. So now, I would like to introduce my really cool guest, Ben Garcia. Say hello to everyone.
How you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. So listen, why don't you take the mic and tell everyone a little bit about yourself? We're going to start there.
Yeah, so I am Ben Garcia. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I own a dog training kennel, and I train bird dogs, which is great. But then I also do music and tour and have a great time recording and playing songs all over the country. So very blessed life. So, and on top of that, I have amazing wife and two beautiful daughters, one in college and one's a junior in high school. So pretty lucky dude, to say the least.
No,
And so,
you are a pretty lucky
yeah,
dude. That sounds
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So when did you
yeah.
start with the dogs?
I started with the dogs in college. After a little bit towards the end of college, I had a year where I was playing a ton of shows and in college and just kind of wore myself down. And I just realized that I've been touring from 15 to 20 and just really running kind of on empty, and not at an unhealthy level, but just when you're 15 getting snuck into bars to play, some things definitely happens in your life you got to check. And I like had long hair, just really was not doing good in school. And I was like, I had a bird dog, and I was like, well, I'll find a trainer and just see like what it's like to train dogs. And ended up like cutting my hair, just completely hanging up music, and needed a different outlet in my life to breathe fresh air other than cigarette smoke and clubs, and then so I just went right into that of dogs, and then I kind of hung up music for 25 years
Oh my
to do
gosh.
dogs. Yeah, and then I just got back into music a year ago, and so recently got back into it, but I took a huge break from it, and just fully went into dogs from that. And so, but yeah,
So
so
you have long hair still?
yeah, well, I grew it out again. So I've
Oh.
grown it out a handful of times and donated it. And
Oh,
at
okay.
46, I don't know if I'm going to donate this because I don't know how much more of it I've got coming back on the back end of it, And so, but yeah, so yeah, it was an interesting move. I just kind of wanted a different outlet instead of music at one part of my life. And, that fresh breath of air you get when you're outside and away from stuff is pretty spiritual and amazing stuff that you get gifted, to be outside and to see that. And then it led to I was training dogs, and the trainer I was working with passed away, and his family said, "Hey, we've got this kennel, we've got everything he built. How about you take it over?" And that's kind of how I got into, by pure accident, into the
Oh,
dogs. So
okay.
yeah, and then I competed with the dogs all over the country. So I'd load up a trailer on horseback with horses, and I'd run dogs on horseback all throughout the country. So I just picked up touring with bands and touring all over to just doing it with dogs and horses.
Hold it.
Just
Hold
kept
it.
it going.
Hold it.
Yeah, yeah,
Hold it.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
I just hear you say you had dogs on horses' backs?
No, no, no. We'd run them on horseback. I mean, I could put my dogs on the horses,
Oh.
but so like, yeah, yeah. So we'd run a course, and the dogs would go out and go. You'd run the dogs on horseback, so you'd be following the dogs on horseback,
Oh.
and then yeah,
Oh.
yeah, and then they'd go on point. But like the dogs would ride in the saddle with me, like they could hop up on the horse's back. But again, like when I tell you, like the luckiest guy in the whole world. Like it's just like I've done it coast to coast and border to border. I've got to run dogs. Like I ran out by you in Maryland, and it was just the craziest thing
Are you ever going
ever.
to be in the New Jersey, New York, or Philly area?
I don't know if I'll be back there again. I ran in. I learned a lesson about the East Coast. I ran in Way Island out in Maryland, and my brother was living in Philly at the time.
Oh.
And I looked it up, and like the miles, it said like 85 miles, and I was like, oh, cool. Well, like Colorado, 85 miles is an hour for us. Like East Coast time, that's a 4 hour drive, like, and
Oh.
so like,
I was going to
those are,
say, it isn't an
yeah, yeah,
hour. Okay.
no, it's not an hour, no. So, I don't know about the East Coast, if we get back out, if I do, it'd be for music, not for dogs. Cause I retired from competing with the dogs when I was 34.
Okay.
And, so it was, our girls were getting older, their sports were getting more competitive, and it was time to be a family guy
Yeah,
home
Dad.
for a while. Yeah, dad. And which is like I have zero regrets about that. I ultimately retired from competing with dogs after I'd won like 3 national championships. I was winning everything I was in, and I was like, you know what, it's better to walk out the Irish goodbye, when you're
Yeah.
like doing good, and then instead of failure. So I hung it up at 34. We sold all the trailers, all the horses, moved from a property into town to raise the girls, and they weren't exactly excited about going from 8 acres to a neighborhood in the suburbs, and so like that took a little bit of adjustment for them, but then they just
Well,
fell
we
right
went
into it.
from, well, when I
Yeah,
was young, I grew up in
right.
Long Island City, New York. My dad moved us
Yeah.
from our neighborhood to the country when I was 12.
Yep.
That was
Right.
adjusting too. I'd rather have the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's we were like we ate out for like 6 months solid. We're like, you can go to Burger King. It's 2 blocks down. Like we had no idea because like when we lived out east on the property, like you went to the store twice a month because you didn't go in, like all the time to get what you needed, and so like we just like, and now we have this horrible habit. We call it the European market in our kitchen. We're like, we just go buy what we're going to make for dinner that night at the store. And we've literally lived in this house for 10 years and still have that habit
That's so
from living.
funny.
Yeah. Cause like we would, like we'd have a buffalo butchered, or I'd get like shoot an elk.
And you're
And we
talking
always
to a
say,
vegan over here,
yeah,
okay?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But like, like you have your garden, you're not going to go, you're not going to go get food from the store.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
have what you have, And so, but now we don't have that habit. So yeah, like, what was your choice for becoming a vegan? Like, I'm
So
curious, what was your,
I've been a
yeah.
vegan over 30 years. I had
Okay.
the beginning stages of colon and breast cancer back in the day.
Okay. Right.
And
Yeah.
becoming a vegan and fasting, I did it all natural, saved my life.
Right. Oh, I bet. Yeah. There's a lot of research on that.
Yeah.
Fasting's an amazing, amazing thing. And so, I mean, isn't it? I mean, of what it does to the brain,
Well,
it's
I
just
did
amazing.
my
Yeah.
first fast back then. I had to bring a home colonic system in, and I did a
Okay.
30-day juice fast with a champion juicer, so no spinning basket. Had to use
Right.
all organic fruit and dilute it with distilled water. My
Right.
second fast was a 2-month water fast, nothing but water. I locked
Right.
myself in my house, and it saved my life.
Was it a toxin dump? Is that what it was? Was
Well,
that the idea of?
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
assuming yes, the way you're saying
Yeah.
it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, in non-medical terms,
Yes,
in just
yes.
layman terms, is
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
idea behind
So,
it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, good for you.
thank you.
Yeah. I'm one that never judges anybody's diet.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't. Where are we to judge another person's eating
Listen, I'm
habits?
going to
So,
tell you something
yeah.
that's going to sound
Yeah.
weird coming from a
Yeah.
vegan. So I
Right.
lived on this country road. My whole
Right.
family did. My uncle, my cousin, my dad, my brother. We all lived on the same country road, okay?
Right.
And we lived on farmland.
Right.
It's 10 minutes from my studio here. And across the street was nothing but farmland, and they've never built and never will. Well, the hunters used to knock on my door and ask if they could hunt in the back. I was on like 50
Right.
acres. And I would say to them, are you going to eat the meat or is it for a trophy? We're going to eat the meat.
Right.
Then you can hunt.
Right.
Because I
Absolutely.
just didn't want trophy hunters.
Yeah, we did that with our daughters. When they were younger, we would take them hunting, and then they had to process the meat with me, and then we donate it to a women's shelter. And so it was a
It's beautiful.
rehabilitation center
See?
for women,
Yeah.
and then it was great. So like they had to process the meat, help load it up, help load it into the shelter, and then my wife and them would go in and make meals out of the meat with them and
Beautiful.
teach them how to make organic meat.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yes,
that's
that's
like
right.
nothing to
Exactly.
process, and it was a really good thing for the girls to see
Yeah,
because
I love that.
it was a shelter that there's if I remember right, there's 4 layers within that shelter. And I say shelter, it's a home, but the idea is if they come in on category 1, that's just where it's just a horrible situation and somebody's
Yeah.
got to make meals for them
Oh, that's
and do everything for
beautiful.
them. And then each home you move into is as you're progressing back into society within this home. And so like I think the third or fourth home they have to start cooking for everybody else within that home. So like all that game meat just went to all those families that were
You
there.
have
And
a
so it was
beautiful heart. You do. You and your
yeah,
family.
yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
that.
Great family, great family. Yeah. I can't take credit for them. Their mom's amazing.
No,
So
listen,
they have an amazing
beautiful.
mom. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
But
now, Ben,
yeah.
let's talk about now. When did you get back into your music?
Interesting enough, the craziest thing happened to me. I was kind of just after COVID done with music. When John Prine died, I took it really personal because that was a
Okay.
musical influence I had. And I just, with getting back after COVID, I was like, well, there's so many other things to do. I really don't know if I want to play music anymore because I was just still at home recording. I hadn't been touring at all. And I had a meeting up in Greeley, and there was a hat company, and they were going to be making a cowboy hat for me. And so I went up there to get a hat readjusted, and I got there, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Trent's super booked. He's got 3 other appointments other than yours. Do you mind waiting?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. Like it's a day off. I've got nothing going on." And these 2 guys walk in that look just like me, like long hair, beards, tattoos, and tell them the same thing. They're like, "Hey, Trent's booked up. You guys are gonna have to wait. Do you mind? Ben's here. You guys can hang out." They're like, "Yeah." So we sit there and we just start talking, and they're both musicians touring, and it just started this friendship of like instant conversation of just by pure accident. And then that is how I met Wes, who plays fiddle on all my songs. And so like he was like, "Hey, we're playing a show. You should come." So me and my wife went to that show, and she's like, "Are you thinking you might want to do this again?" I was like, "I don't know, like it sounds fun," but I thought, well, I'll try to write a song. And then just like the floodgates came undone. I mean, just like I was writing probably 2 or 3 songs a day, and just they were coming. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll record one, So then I recorded one and I texted Wes and I was like, "Hey, do you know a fiddle player that might want to play on this?" He's like, "I'll play on it," you know? And so I was like, "Cool." And then, so I sent him the track, he sent it back, we released it, and it just blew up. Like it did well in Europe, it did well all over
Oh my
South America. And like,
gosh.
so like pure accident. I don't think it's an accident. I think it's a very spiritual thing that happened to me of just like another gift in my life that was
From
like,
God.
"Hey,
From
yeah,
God.
here you go." Yep. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. It was a total gift,
Yep.
and so, yeah. And so,
So I want to share something totally off subject about God with a
yeah.
gift to me because I wrote my book in 2016. Okay.
Yeah.
So back in the day, so every year I start my year out with a show and I end the year out with a show how God and Elvis saved my life.
Right.
So everybody
Right.
thinks it was Elvis's music. Well, it started with
Right.
Elvis's music, of course. I became a huge Elvis fan since I was a kid.
Right.
Anyway, I had beauty salons back in the 80s and 90s, making too much money, too stupid. You know, you're too young. I was in
Right.
my
Yeah.
20s. So I got involved with drugs, heroin, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I had a black and gold 1990 Eldorado Cadillac with
Okay.
Elvis license plates.
Love it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, my clientele were very wealthy, mostly Jewish women, and they all had businesses. One of them, who's still in my life, she was the municipal court judge. She was the boss of all the judges back then.
Right.
Okay? Well, I would meet her for lunch at the courthouse often in that flashy car with Elvis license plates.
Right.
One night, 1 o'clock in the morning or so, I'm in the car with a girlfriend and we're copping our heroin from our drug dealer, young black drug
Right.
dealer in Trenton. He didn't have the heroin. He had to get in the back of my car. We had to go 2 blocks. We didn't know it, but an unmarked police car was following us who
Right.
recognized my Elvis license plates and knew I had to be a friend of the judge.
Right.
He called her in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
He pulls us over. He says, "Jerry, Judge so-and-so said, get this guy out of your car, get the drugs out of your car, go home, get some rest, and get some help." I changed my
Right.
life the next day. And
Is
I
that
always
amazing?
say God used Elvis because if I didn't have those license plates, he wouldn't have recognized it.
Right. Right.
Okay?
It's the symbolism of it. Yeah. It's the symbolism of what mattered to you,
Yeah,
and what was important to you for sure.
and God used
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
all right, so now let me ask you something about your music. So,
Yeah.
are you in a band now?
I just tour with Wes mostly as a fiddle player. So as a duo right now.
What do you
The
call your duo?
We just call it Ben Garcia, and then it's whoever's playing with me. So it may be one fiddle player from one state, one fiddle player from the next state. It's whoever I can grab to go play with
Okay.
me, or I'll play solo. Like this weekend, I'm solo in Texas. I have 2 shows by myself in
Okay.
Texas, and then I come back, and then I play in Cheyenne, and that's with the fiddle player that plays with us. That's in Cheyenne. So really, just a great group of people we have around us playing music, And so, yeah, that's how I'm touring right now. The goal is next year to be touring with the full band, but it's going to take a little bit more steps to have that happen
Okay.
before we do that. So,
So,
yeah.
how many instruments do you play, if any?
I play guitar and I sing, and then I play mandolin also, and
Mhm.
then but I've kind of put the mandolin on the back burner just for guitar
Okay.
recently. So, but
Okay.
yeah, but I've played guitar since I was 13, so I'm 30, 34 years
Okay.
into playing guitar on that, and purely rhythm guitar. I'm the worst lead guitarist in the world.
I love
Like
it.
just like yeah, you do not want to put me on lead guitar. I'll
I
be
love it.
fired
That's
right
great.
away. Yeah, I'm better at keeping the rhythm of life than leading life, is
I
what I
love
like to
that.
tell people. Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
now, um, Americana country. Tell us the difference
yeah.
between that and regular country, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is always the industry talk, right? Of where people categorize you and where they put you. Um, I think of country as where it comes from and the meaning of it, and I think of Americana the same way. Country to me is not necessarily the subject matter, although I think that's a huge of what you're writing about,
Okay.
but the style you're playing in, the type of chords you're playing in, the tempos, whether it's a shuffle, if it's a waltz, if it's a two-step, that's where I categorize country into. What Americana means to me is very regional to what Americana means to people. Like if you're in the Appalachians, Americana means something completely different. What it means to me is the influences I pull in from blues, the influence I pull in from rock, the influence I pull in from bluegrass, the influence I pull in from instrumental.
Ah,
That's how I pull that Americana into there. I don't think it gets into like my love for like R&B or like soul music or like those things, but they definitely influenced that into me. So I think I like to think of everything I've ever listened to my whole life comes into a blender and you hit blend and then you just pour that drink
Oh,
out for everybody to take in,
that's pretty
you know?
cool.
Yeah. And so,
I love that.
yeah.
All right, so now a couple more questions before we play your first song. All
Right.
right, so growing up,
Yeah.
okay, who were some of your musical influences?
Yeah, mine were interesting. I grew up like every other kid from the 70s. Like I was so blessed. I got my parents listening to music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, so it may have been the Beatles to the Beach Boys to the Rolling Stones to everything from, like Hank Williams Jr. My dad listened to. My dad was just this big influence of every kind of music ever. Like we may have listened to Santana one night and then listened to Bob Marley the next night. So I just like got really blessed with my family. My dad's side of the family was very musical and very into all kinds of music. My mom's side of the family were deep readers and very philosophical, very literal people in literature, and so which led to my brother's now a professor. He's a doctorate in English literature and
Oh,
medieval
okay.
English literature out of and a brilliant reader. I got my intelligence into music, not reading so much. So
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
my family it was strange. Like mom and brother would read a ton and I'd listen to music all night.
Okay.
So we just had this split. But I got just so lucky listening to so much music. I mean, just you name it and we listened to it. It was on all the time. And then where I grew up in Boulder was a melting pot of music at the time. And where I started playing shows is when alternative kicked on, and I keep coming to this theory of like, I literally in one day was listening to Guns N' Roses and then listened to Nirvana the next day because the market did such a swift shift of music, that like I just was like, and then when Nirvana came on and Soundgarden and all those bands, like all of a sudden they were talking about Led Zeppelin, all of a sudden they were talking about Black
Yeah.
Sabbath, all they were talking about. Then you were like, oh, I can go find those at the record store, and then that dove into other music. And then so it just became this huge melting pot of what the 90s was. The 90s, I think, was a great time that we all learned about a lot about different cultures and a lot of
Yeah.
different music because we were so diverse then and it wasn't
You're right.
offensive to anybody to be diverse. You were curious about like, hey, why is this band listening to like why is
Yeah.
Public Enemy bringing in Afro beats from Africa, right? And then you could be like, oh, what's African beats? And they started to be ways to go find those resources with
Wow.
CDs that weren't ordering vinyls
Yeah.
and those things. So I just had, and then I got into like, yeah, I was listening to Paul Simon, and then I
Yeah.
got into like South American flutes, which is like so crazy beat and like instrumental stuff like that. And then, so just really like in the like college is when you really get imprinted for music because then you're with another population that has musical tastes that you didn't have, and they're bringing those in there. And then, from high school, I went from alternative music to listen to like Widespread Panic and Fish and Grateful Dead more, and then that opened up even more music. And then that's when I got into bluegrass, listening to a lot of bluegrass. And then I went through this classical stage where I was like, I'm completely done listening to all instrumental music except for classical music and listen to that. So just like I can't put a pinpoint on one of it because I'll just listen to anything and try to listen to what they're talking about, and try to listen to the themes and the beats. And I think there's so much to add to that. You can listen to it. But the heart of all my music love that always it comes back to is older country, like and field blues music. I absolutely love,
Okay.
so like Muddy Waters to me is just like absolutely brilliant, and I'll listen to him all the time. And I just absolutely love what the Stones did of Muddy Water, their interpretation of music, and so but the blues to me is always something that it always has my heart and always pulls on me in a lot of ways. And not new blues, not, I mean, I'm talking like older blues that like Robert Johnson talking about going down to the crossroads just melts my heart, to think about that. I mean, all the folklore in it is what I love the most of blues music, the folklore of the songs that came. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, but we got great songs like the slave chants that they're doing created these rhythmic patterns and these drum beats they brought from Africa that led to early rock and roll, that led to all the music you love and Elvis, all went back to the South of those chants of those slaves working on those plantations
Yeah.
and then the church influence on it,
Yeah.
that Baptist influence on it. To me, as somebody that loves history of
Yeah.
music, is just I just geek out on it all the
Yeah.
time, and so
Wow. You
Yeah.
know, I always
Yeah.
say I was born too late. I was born in 61. I'm
Yeah.
64, and
Right.
my music is Elvis oldies and doo-wop. Okay, but you can't
Yeah.
take the rock out of me either. Led
Yeah. Yeah.
Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Foreigner,
Yeah. Yeah.
Genesis. I've seen
Yeah.
them all. Even
Right.
Jethro Tull. Are you kidding me? I love.
Right. Oh yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can't take that out of me. Um,
Right.
but you know, music is music, and you're right about what you said. I never heard anyone explain it the way you did about the 90s,
Right.
because you are 100% right. We
Yeah.
had clubs in Mercer County, Hamilton, New Jersey. We had
Right.
like 4 local clubs, and we were at this one every Wednesday, this one every Friday, this one every Saturday, you know. And our music was all over the place. And
Right.
it was so amazing, and you're right.
Right. And we've just like this is going to sound super political, and I don't mean it to be political
Uh,
because it's from a music study, but we've done this whole like away from celebrating diversity that we should all be one that lost that instead of saying like hey like because like when you used to go to Austin you go down to 6th Street, right? Like you could go to an African American bar and there'd be blues music playing.
right.
Then you could go across the street and there'd be a hip hop bar. Then you could go across that street, there'd be a country band playing. Then there'd be somebody chicken picking out of 2 bars down from there. And then we did this whole like everybody's got to be the same, everybody's got to hold hands and kumbaya, and we lost that separation that music just disappeared. And those clubs like that, like you talked to,
Yeah, they're
you know,
gone.
that they're gone. I mean, you could like there's nothing like seeing a band at a dive bar.
Right.
Like everybody's done it, but like
We
you
loved
could
it.
see any of those loved it, but those days are gone because everybody wanted to hold hands and kumbaya and love each other the same and look each other the same. And then we lost all of our diversity out of that. Is
Frank
my theory on
Stallone,
it. Yeah.
Sylvester's
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah. He's a player.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I had a fake ID back in the day, and he used to play
Yeah.
in Trenton, New Jersey. I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to interview him, and we were talking off air about Trenton back then. So I got to
Right.
meet him way back then. It was
Right.
so cool. Nothing is the
Yeah.
same anymore.
No, it's not. And did you read Bruce Springsteen's book by any chance?
No.
Oh, the first half is the best part.
Well, just
When
give
he
me a
gets,
little bit of it. Go ahead.
yeah, when he gets successful is where I just lost the book because he's got like all this money and he's talking about buying horses and owning a tequila company. Like that's not relevant.
Okay.
But the best part is him struggling in New Jersey to try to get out, you know, and like try to play all these clubs. Like he's playing Jersey, he's playing Philly, but they're so regionally close, and all those clubs that just took a chance on him
Yeah.
is what made that happen,
It's
you know. And
amazing.
then like, but the book's brilliant. Like he's got a deal, he's got a meeting with Columbia, right? And he's got to get there. He doesn't even have a car. So he borrows somebody's car to go there. He grabs an acoustic guitar. And I think at Columbia at the time had like Dylan, they had everybody
Yeah.
they might even had Miles Davis at the time. I think that's how much money Columbia had at the time. And he gets there and he's on the way and he gets stopped at a toll. And he's like, I don't have any money. Like he didn't have any money. Bruce was so broke, he didn't have any money. And you want to talk about fate and you want to talk about everything we're talking about in spirituality. The toll person was like, you can't go through the toll into the city unless you have money. And he like reached down and found a quarter. And that's exactly what he needed to get through the toll and put it in and then went and played for
That's
and then
crazy.
like you're just like
Okay.
this happens all around. But that's
Yep.
the brilliant of all that stuff. But you know, I mean, all that stuff when you hear artists and their stories always have those
Yeah.
stories of like
Yeah.
some little hint of faith was
Yeah.
given to him or spirituality, you know, or fate, you know, to
Yeah.
say here's a little deposit back into
Steve
you.
Harvey,
You know,
Sylvester
yeah,
Stallone. He had to sell his dog,
so
and
his
then
dog to make, yeah,
and then
exactly.
he bought it
It's a
back
great
for
story.
thousands.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he sold his shoes too.
Well,
Like when
yeah,
you
you
read on
know.
Rocky, I think when he was making Rocky, he sold his shoes.
Okay.
If I
So
remember, like I think he was down to nothing.
okay.
You know, I mean, just yeah, I mean, just all that's that struggle to go
You
through.
know, and Steve
You know,
Harvey living in his car
yeah,
too. I mean, think
right,
about
yeah,
it, right?
right, yeah, all those. I mean, look at all the comedians that went through that too. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, but then what I wonder as an artist is if that's what makes your art, right? Like one of my favorite comics of all time is Richard Pryor,
Oh,
and Richard
yes.
Pryor could not be on TV right now at
Okay.
all. But like I was very blessed that like my dad and my mom was a single mom at the time, so I don't know she knew we were watching Eddie Murphy, you know, and like Richard Pryor. But that was like the most brilliant stuff ever. But then you read Richard Pryor's book, and his childhood's a disaster,
Yeah.
you know. But all the stuff he's talking about
Yeah.
is stuff he lived through, you know, and like I mean, well, then when he was freebasing and he caught on fire, like that's the
Yeah.
ultimate price to pay for that struggle,
You know
you know,
what's
and all
funny,
that, you
Ben?
know,
Doing all these interviews all these years, right? I
right,
have come to find out that the majority, not all, but the
right,
majority of actors a
Right.
lot of musicians, and all comedians, with the exception of maybe 5%, all
Right.
had very hard lives.
Yeah. In
And,
some way or
and this
another.
has
Yeah.
saved their lives.
Right. Or destroyed it. I mean, I
Oh,
watched the
well,
other end of it.
well,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I was just telling somebody the other day, I used to play in a band in high school, and the guy would huff paint before we'd play, and he just like you're like we didn't know, but like he was a great blues player. I mean, he could play Stevie Ray Vaughan all night in this band we were in, but then he just at a young age had a horrible of addiction problem. But in the 90s we didn't know that was a mental. We thought addiction was because you were just weak and you were addicted to things because you had no temptation. You couldn't control your temptations. We had no idea of chemical imbalances or diets or things that fed into those, that I think's changed a lot of that. And I wonder if that's why we don't see it as much now too, because we've gotten more mental health for artists. There's a lot of funds for mental health for artists
Yes.
that I think
Yes, there are.
plays a big factor into that wasn't around in the
No,
80s and
you're
90s,
right. You're right.
so who knows, but then man, it's the question to ask God when you get to heaven, right? Like, did it make the music worse or better? Did make an artist healthier make the music better? I don't know. Did it make it worse? Who knows? Is the subject matter? Because once you get healthy, are you writing about dark stuff, or have you moved on to more positive things? I don't know.
Wow.
You know,
I didn't
it's
expect
yeah,
this interview to go this way, and I think
yeah,
you're
yeah.
incredible.
Oh,
I
thank
mean
you.
that. I want to
Yeah,
thank you for everything you're sharing and saying because
yes.
people need to hear this.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of dark. I think there's a darkness in everywhere that we try to like just push under the rug, and I try to write about that in some of my songs, is bringing awareness to that. But like you, I'm a history fan of like I love doo-wop is brilliant to me. Like all that is the runs they do is
Right.
just so good, in the harmonizations, the dances at the time is what I'm so jealous of like that dancing in the 50s is just
Incredible.
the soda shop dances
Okay.
are just take my money because I'd go
Okay. The
watch it
poodle
now.
skirts. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all stuff. But I always tried almost every song of mine reference back a line to a song from previous eras. And
Wow.
so like what I try to do is, so it may be like a line Waylon wrote. It may be a line that like Willie Nelson wrote. It may be something that I go back to because that's my anchor for the next person after I'm gone, to go, hey, those things aren't lost. So there's like, why did Ben say that line? And then as they start reading, they're like, maybe that introduces them to Jerry Jeff Walker. Maybe that introduces them into, the Stones, or into Muddy Waters, or into, Lightning Hopkins. I may take something in that subject matter and write about it because it gives somebody that's younger than me a chance to read into that lyric, to go, where did that come from? Where do I anchor into that? So like my writings, it may be something I lived through, but it's
Wow.
it's got something that I've got a message in
Yeah,
to
yeah,
pay
yeah.
attention to that. And I've got one song that I wrote that it was interesting. I wrote it for a friend of mine on her life of excess and drugs, and alcohol. When the last time I saw her, she was not in a good place, and so I thought, well, I'll write this song. And I like, as I was writing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is about her. This is about what like I can envision her life was through with her addiction and everything. And then like halfway through it, I realized like I'm writing the song about myself. I'm literally like, this is no longer about her. This is about me. This is about the excess I fell into following the Grateful Dead and all that party scene of like this hippie life of like everybody's euphoric, but never talking about the risk of that, of the love. And so like that song, it was also during last year during the election when we were doing this home of the free, home of the brave as Americans, right? And what I came to the conclusion of that song is, we do it to ourselves as Americans. We feed the addiction as Americans. So what we do is we raise these kids and go, no matter what, you're the best. No matter what, you're the boldest. No
Right.
matter what, you're going to be better than anybody else. But we never talk about the dark side of that. Like,
Right.
give it 110%. Well, then we're raising these kids that like see evil and they have no filter of evil because we've eliminated it. And we just have this process of this big ego of America, right? And then that feeds us back our problems we have as a society in drugs and alcohol. We do it to ourselves in so many ways too. So I wrote that song. It's called American Spirit, but there's a line in it. I recorded it twice and I've tried to have somebody sing on it once. And she's like, I'm not singing the line on that, because it has The Grateful Dead had this song called Scarlet Begonias, and Scarlet Begonias is celebrating this hippie girl that's at shows. She had ring on her fingers and flowers on her shoes. Like, it's about this hippie girl dancing. And I said, in the line, I say, Scarlet Begonia was a lie. And that's an interesting line to say to yourself. It's not written to the Grateful Dead. It's that you fell for it. You lost your filter to it. And then so that was a real interesting song to have come out. And I've had people, like, when I play it, grasp and like have to take a breath in of like, oh my gosh, what are you writing about there? But it has nothing to do about this friend. I wrote it about myself. Like, did we just get caught up in this music scene of like, things are moving fast, things are fun, and all these things, and there's so many things at that time in your life. But if you don't hit the brakes and you have this side of America that we have of like, we can do anything, we can take on any challenge, we're Americans, but we don't talk about like that. When you're met with negative things, we don't teach kids how to hit the brakes on it. We tried with like Dare, we tried with other things, but like, I mean, it only goes so far in the conscious of that. So that's why I called that song American Spirit, and so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now it's time, I think. Let's play one of
Yeah.
your songs, and we're going to have you talk about the song that's
Yeah.
played. Here we
Yeah.
go. Wow.
Good times, y'all. Hey there, darling, gonna wrong my right, gonna try to take you home tonight. I'm driving down the road with no headlights and you on my mind. Hey there, darling, I'm rolling the dice, I'm swaying on a line. So give me your hand and make me a good time man. Hey there, trouble, where you dancing off to? Seems your two-step holds true. I'm singing to you about my love and talking like a fool. Hey there, trouble, we're drinking tonight, but still walk the line. So give me your hand and make me a good time man. Good times now. A good time man, he travels the land, and it's hard to understand. So light that fire and take me home. Trouble can't be alone. A good time man needs a good time woman. Their passion, hot damn. So give me your hand and make me good time man. So give me your hand and make me good time man.
Tell us about that song.
Yeah, Good Time Man. That's one of my favorite songs to play live. So Wes, who plays fiddle for me, he was on tour last summer and he was sending me messages. He's like, "Yeah, I just played in front of 25,000 people. I just played in front of 50," and he was like playing these huge crowds with the band he was in, and he was getting like really. He's already a phenomenal fiddle player, but like he was changing how he was playing fiddle. Like it was going from like really methodical, very beautiful plays to like these powerful solos and just
Gotcha.
these
Yeah.
the clips I was watching him play. And he sent me a clip of them playing at like a Fourth of July show, right, or whatever it was, and they're like playing Amazing Grace, and there's like 15,000 lighters, and he's playing Amazing Grace on his fiddle. And I was like, I got to write a song where I let him showboat. Like I just got to write a song. So that's what I wrote that song for. Like it really, like all the fills were laid out for him to have that, and I was like, I got to put some kind of words to this little bluegrass song I wrote, And so literally I wrote that song. It's about this club I used to play in college. And it was just about everybody who was there was just it was just a great time to be at that club. But those are scenes of things that I took that had happened in that club at 20 playing. But it gives into like, you never know what the character does. So he's trying to like seduce this woman, but you never know if he gets with her or not. He's saying like, "Hey, there, Don, we're gonna drink tonight, but still we walk the line," right? So like, there's that goes to Johnny Cash, that walk the line of Johnny Cash.
Okay.
But Waylon used that line all the time in all the songs, "Walk the Line," and there's more Waylon in that song than anything. Like "Good Time Man," I literally took that from a Waylon Jennings song, but it's that style of like that Waylon was very, very sexual in his lyrics. I mean, very like without saying what he was doing, I mean, and he was in that mix of all those guys at that time, like Elvis and those guys that had to
Yeah.
drop hints of it in their
Yeah,
songs
yeah,
without
yeah,
saying
yeah,
what they were
yeah.
doing. Yeah, so that's what I took that song as, is just this club I used to play and just the chaos of like all the unfortunate. Like it all sounds romantic, but the undertone of it, it's all got this dark side to it. So like, "Hey there, darling, I'm driving tonight, but still," what I mean? So he's driving home, he's swaying over the line. Is people driving home drunk from the bar, so like it's all this tornado of what happens in bars, which I'm sure were you a drinker or did you go
I
to
never
bars or
drank, just
you
the
yeah
drugs.
just the drugs, but like in that drug scene too, there's just all these characters that play into those scenes, like of just these little storylines that come out, that I just peeled one from all these nights at that bar and put it in that song, literally just to write a song for Wes to have to play the fiddle
Yeah.
too. And it ended up being one of my favorite songs to ever play
I
live.
love it.
Like it's it's so
So
fun.
cool.
Like, like that, like, "Hey there, darling, where you run up to, it seems your two-step holds true." That's all the country bars that I got to play in and be at, like those are all things that,
Yeah.
that two-step where like she's two-stepping away from him. She's
Yeah.
not dancing towards him anymore that night. She's moving away from him to go dance with somebody else.
Yeah, very
So that's
cool.
two-stepping over the line. So yeah, that's really what I wrote that song about.
That's so
And
cool.
it's just a fun degenerate bar song
I
is what I
love
always
it.
tell everybody. Yeah, it's a fun song to play live.
So, producer, what'd you think? Good? Producer, what'd you think? He's giving you a thumbs up.
Okay, good. Yeah,
No, I
that's
really liked that song. It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it's an interesting song. It doesn't do well streaming, but it does very well on radio.
I love it.
So, yeah, I mean, and that radio, I think, cause the beat of it and the dance beat to it, I think it has that little bit of drum beat from Gold Earring,
Right.
Radar Love. Like I think it does better with an older
So cool.
population on radio listen,
Love it.
and not as well with streaming with youngers. But I love
I
playing
love
that
it.
song. It's a fun song to play.
So,
Yeah, it's
now, producer, let's play our second song and then we'll have you talk about that one.
yeah.
Here we go, guys.
I woke up to see the mountains. I woke up to see the sky. I shook off my heavy head and looked over, see your eyes. It's a long way from home, the time we've been gone. I'll tell you this, my love, it's been good for the soul. Let's never find our way back home. Travelers unknown, they make a home start going back. Oh no. Now I've been reading Kerouac. I'm starting to write more like Jack, but I look over to you and have to ask, could you love me from sea to sea and sing these road songs with me? Oh, babe, be my Bobby McGee, and never find our way back home. Travelers unknown, and make a home of this road. Never look back. Oh no. Let's push out west, put those sunsets to rest. Buckle up, baby, let's take a deep breath and never find our way back home. Travelers unknown, and make a home of this road. We ain't never going back, baby. Oh no. Oh no.
All right, tell us about that song. That's pretty cool.
That's my best stream song of all time. That one does very well, and I've yet to play that song without crying on stage. Like it gets me every time. And like I wrote that song in 5 minutes one morning with a cup of coffee, and like it just came out, and it
Wow.
was like, yeah, we were starting to get traction with some of the songs. Like Charm was out doing well, and like people were starting to watch what I was doing, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ask my wife, like, can I tour again? Can I like play shows? Like, what is this gonna be? And I literally wrote the song for my wife, asking permission to do music again. But I wrote it in the theme of The Road by Jack Kerouac. You know, like I took Kerouac's book, The Road, and if you've read it, there's all these characters that come into play in that, and that's what I compared it to our life of when we met in college, moved out to Arizona for her to get her master's, watched my brother moved from Philly to California to get his doctorate. Watched my uncle move from Washington D.C. to Montana to work for the Forest Service in their career with their boys, and like all this movement that was around me of people moving out west to build their careers is what I took that theme of Jack Kerouac in there, and then I added in there. You know, there's that line "Be My Bobby McGee" because I loved that song. I love Janice's Bobby McGee. I love Chris Christopherson who wrote it,
Okay.
"Be My Bobby McGee." So all of it's just this hippie, landish idea of like, hey, will you support me in this, of that I'm going to do this, you know? And so you know, because if you like remember Bobby McGee, it's like busted flat in Ben Rouge, broke him down a train, I was feeling near as faded as my jeans, you know, like Chris is writing about them going on this journey, and like windshield wipers turning time, you know, like it just, or keeping time, you know, like all this brilliance between Kerouac and this, and Jerry Garcia and Kerouac and all these people that were in that that scene of that idea of being free and just living, and I've always lived my life a little bit. Jerry did an interview one time where he said Americans are afraid to ride the rails. We've forgotten our ability to ride the trains,
Not me, baby.
and yeah, so like I was like, huh, I'm kind of doing this at 45. Like I'm just kind of going like sidelining my fishing habits, sidelining my hunting stuff, all the stuff I'd been doing, my podcast, everything else I was doing. I'm like, I could kind of do this and explore it. And then like that song, I watched like when I played it in a listening room, and the majority of the population were your age. They were in the 60s plus. And when I said, "Now I've been reading Kerouac," like everybody was like, "Oh," they just froze. Like it brought them back. And then when I said, "Be My Bobby McGee," all the women in the room were like, on their hearts, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, oh, sorry. I was like,
No,
"Oh,"
that's
I was
okay.
like,
It's
"Oh yeah."
okay.
I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like this song moves people. And then like I started watching. Like I just played it last week at a show, and there was a couple like holding on to each other, like gripping. And I
Oh,
watched that happen to that song so many times, where like it's such a simple song. There's no very intense lyrics in it, but everybody can relate to it. And then I'll play it, and people will put their own stories into it of their marriages or their relationships or their journey to leave drugs, I mean, and to
right.
take that risk to go down the road you never been through. And I think that came from Kerouac when I was very young and read The Road, and then you just start thinking about this risk to hop into a car and just go down the road
Yeah.
and see where you end up. And that's why I wrote that song. That's why it's called Road Song.
You
And
know,
so yeah, yeah.
I grew up, my brother and I are complete opposites. My brother's a
Okay.
year and 2 months older than me.
Okay.
All right. And he is very conservative.
Right.
He's very well off. He takes care of all of us. My brother's
Right.
amazing, but
Right.
the businessman, the whole bit.
Right. Yeah.
He never had any kids, so my daughter's his, my grandkids are his.
Right.
Anyway, I was always driving my family crazy. My poor father,
Right.
what the hell's the matter for you? He was from Italy.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
Right. Yeah.
I went to New Zealand to jump off the first bridge. AJ Hackett did his first bungee jump. Okay,
Right.
I jumped off of a cliff with a kite attached to me. I jumped out of a plane. I swam with sharks. There is nothing I haven't done. I
Right.
never was scared and never thought anything bad could happen. I was
Right.
always like, yeah, I went to Russia, listen to this, and Asia in the 80s when it was communism on a hell tour with Lenox
Right.
Hill Hospital. And I had machine guns pointed at me at all the walls, and I still got the rocks, hit them in my bra. You
Right.
have no idea. I am
Done it all.
crazy
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
always thought we have one life.
Right.
Take the chances,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Well, you can learn from it. Yeah, you can learn from anything.
Well,
I
I
mean,
learned a lot
yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yeah,
bad stuff I did too.
yeah, yeah. It's always on the same train,
You
right?
know?
There's always gold and coal on the
That's
same
right,
train
baby.
going down the track. Yeah. I mean, so but yeah, that's what I wrote that song about. And like, even if my wife's not there and I try to play that song, I still get taken on this roller coaster of it. Because like, who, I mean, this is gonna sound. It's not meant to sound cocky or anything at all, but like I've had a very good year with my music. I've been very blessed
Beautiful.
with
Don't That's
numbers
not
and everything else. Yeah,
cocky.
yeah, and it's a little bit of a thank you back in that lyric. Does that
Yeah.
make sense in those lyrics?
Yes,
Like
yes.
it's like there's where the line is "Stop looking back, oh no." Or like, we ain't never going back. The song ends with "We
Right.
ain't never going back, baby." And so, and then so it's just this idea of like we're on it, we're going.
I love
And
it.
so my poor wife, like you talk about your dad, my wife is in a whole other category. Like the things I've put her through. Like I'm kind of like you. Like I evaluate risk fear really fast, and fear is in my most of my fears, am I going to die, or is this going to cost more money, or is this going to hurt somebody? Those are my three categories. And other than that,
Well, I'm
it's a
not even
risk to
afraid
take
of
it.
dying because I
Yeah,
believe in
yeah,
God and I know,
exactly.
I'm going to
Yeah,
need him.
yeah, and so this theory of it, of I think it's not like a second chance. It's not anything like that. It's just
Right.
this. I've just sponged all these things up in my travels and in my time. And when you get a travel, like you said, when you travel, like I think that's the one thing. Our girls were getting ready. My oldest daughter was getting ready to graduate high school at the time and go on with her college career. And I think when you travel, you learn so much more than if you stay home in one place. If
I
you
agree.
never leave the town you grew up in, you just have all you know is that population. You don't
I
know
agree.
anything about anybody else, you know. And that man, I have been in some of the craziest stuff. I mean, I could write a book on situations I've got.
Right
I mean,
one.
yeah, I mean, like taking bikes in Belize for a ride in the jungle with my wife to go eat fried chicken. Somebody told me about this place in Belize in the jungle, and
Do
my
it.
wife's riding. Yeah, I did it with my wife, and my
No,
wife's like,
write
"I
a
think we're gonna
book.
die." Oh, write a book, yeah, yeah, no, I should.
I'm
But yeah, I mean, just
serious.
yeah, I mean, because that's stuff where you're like, but that night, my wife was like, "I don't want to leave where we're at," and I was like, "We're in." Like, there's a family having Sunday dinner. We got invited to it. One of the staffs invited us, and man, like, it wasn't just fried chicken. It was like Cajun fried chicken because you're in Belize, so it's like this like New Orleans style, this French Cajun spice. But then there's like jambalaya there, and then there's like yellow rice because they're in the the coastal areas, and there's fruit and all this food. And then that family starts telling stories about everywhere where this food came from, and you're like,
Pretty
you
cool.
couldn't write a song like that.
Pretty
You
cool.
just couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't even at all. Or like, man, being yeah, just crazy stuff that
Pretty
I've got
cool.
to go down that I just try to sponge along the way to write something about along the way with it.
So
But
we still have a little bit of time.
yeah,
Before we play your last song, I want to read a book out of my poem now.
okay,
Okay, and there's a reason I love reading this poem when I do entertainers
yeah,
because it's called Utilizing Gifts and Talents.
okay.
And I want everyone out there to know if you're questioning your self worth or if you have any talents, you do.
Yeah.
Everyone has something to offer. You just
But
have to,
everybody's gonna write something bad to start off with. I mean,
okay?
it's not gonna be perfect from the beginning.
And it's not even
They,
about just writing. It
no,
could
I
be
mean,
anything. I mean, what imagine if we didn't have sanitation workers.
right,
Imagine everyone has a gift. So if
right,
anybody out there is questioning your worth, listen to every word of this poem, okay? We all
yeah,
have something to offer, guys. Here goes. Utilizing gifts and talents. We are born with talents, we are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry, and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used, God's gift to us, not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living we can make by spreading them around, not just for the money, but to spread a peaceful sound. Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second rate. Never hold them back, or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar. Go through life enlightened, and then you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, your name, Ben Garcia, baby, will live forever, forever and a day. So go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. So make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. And that's
I
what
like
you're
it.
doing.
Right. So when you read that, like the line where you said have a voice, so I'm curious because this is what I've really focused on the last couple of years. Did your parents allow you to have a voice? Who gave you your voice? Like,
Okay.
could you free speak in your house growing up? Like,
Yes, I
yeah,
drove my
and that's yeah,
parents crazy.
but they let you do it.
They would yell
They
because
let you,
they were
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
They were Italian. My
They're
dad was from
Italian. Yeah, yeah,
Italy. My
yeah,
dad was
yeah,
from Italy, and my
yeah,
mother was an American Italian. So they would yell and say, "You're not doing that, and don't even ask me again." And that's it. And they would
right,
walk out of the room, and I would giggle. And then 5 minutes later, all right, you could do it, but listen, you
right,
better
yeah.
be careful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think I had this brilliant professor in college, and we were wrapping up our history class, and she was a brilliant. She had marched with Martin Luther King, just
uh,
this amazing woman. And we got done with the class, and she said, "I'm gonna all you learn in college because we were freshmen, right?" She goes, "Everything you learn, I'm gonna teach you all something that nobody else will ever teach you." And then we all like kind of look. I mean, we're like 17, 18-year olds. You're like, "What is she gonna say?" She goes, "Read to your children."
Oh, I love it.
read to your children. And then I've added one on let your children speak. Let your
Yes.
children have a voice.
Yes.
Because when you limit that voice, they start turning it internal in themselves.
Yep.
Let them tell you even if it's the weirdest thing in the world about a spider on the wall.
Oh my God.
Let them
Yes.
create the story. Let them create the story.
Yes.
Because that's all art is somebody's
That's right.
either restricted it and it's become a dark art, or somebody's allowed it and it's become a beautiful art. I mean, it's all beautiful because it's art and its expression. But
There you
like,
go.
I think if you let kids have a voice and you let them just communicate their feelings and like, why are you feeling that way? What's causing you to feel that way is so much better than any harshness of a parent you could be to a child by letting them have a voice,
Well, I have I have to
yeah,
share another silly story with you.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and keep in mind, my dad was from Italy. All
I
right.
love it. Yeah. I love
So
it.
they moved to Astoria, New York. Blah blah blah. So I wanted to go to art school.
Okay.
My father was shaking his head like,
Couldn't imagine.
okay.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said, "You're not going to art school." And then, all right, I'll pay for you to art school. The
Yeah.
whole bit. All right, you
Yeah.
better do good. I had to live at my Nana's from New Jersey. I had to live at my Nana's in Astoria because I had to take the
Okay.
train. The school was in the Village in New York, School of Visual Arts, SVA, and it's still there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It was in 1979. So I had to have portfolios. Painting class was on one day. So then
Okay.
I'd leave that portfolio in my bedroom and go to drawing class the next day. And then, okay, whatever. Well, my Nonna didn't speak English.
Right.
All right.
Is this your dad's mom?
This is
Your
my dad's
mom?
mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to remember, I was also only 17.
Right.
So we walked into our first drawing class, and the teacher was a hippie. He didn't even have
Right.
shoes on. He had ripped jean shorts on and long hair and whatever. We
Right.
walk in, and he's got 6 naked models sitting down. One was a perfect, beautiful young woman, a perfect,
Right.
beautiful young man. Then he had a 300-pound man, a 300-pound woman. Then he had an
For shape size.
80-year-old
Yeah.
man and an 80-year-old woman. We're like this. Okay?
Yeah.
He says, start drawing. Well, we're starting at the faces. Well, he's
Right.
walking around looking. Now, keep in mind, it was 1979. Things were different.
Right.
He gets up to the front of the class, he pounds the desk, and he uses the F word, and he says, you want to be effing artist? Stop drawing the faces, let's see some.
Yep.
And he named the body parts.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
Yeah.
like, oh my
Love
God.
it.
So now I go home that night, I put my drawing
Oh, no.
portfolio in my
Yeah.
bedroom. The next day I take my painting portfolio for painting class. I
Right.
come home, my Nana's on the phone screaming in the phone to my father in Italian, pointing at the penises and the boobs. She
Right,
went, okay. I'm screaming, Nana, my homework, my homework, my homework. So I go, Dad, that's my homework. She can't rip it up. And he calms her down. He goes, I'll come tomorrow. Don't rip it up. That's her homework.
Right.
My dad had to come, even though he's shaking his head that his daughter's drawing penises and boobs and
Right.
the whole bit.
Right.
And he said, no, to his mom, calm down. This is her homework. And my dad dealt with
Right.
it all.
He did. Yeah. Yeah. Did he say like he was from the old country? Did he reference did he call it the old country, or what did he call home when he talked about Italy?
Well, all right, I'm going to tell you something
Yeah.
beautiful. My uncle,
What's he
his
say? Yeah.
brother, who's still alive, my dad's gone, he ended up being a Marine. So they
Okay.
used to say this all the time. Italy, we were born in Italy, but America's
Right.
our country.
Right.
So he would
Right.
say the old country.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Yeah.
curious about. Yeah. It's so interesting of that
Beautiful.
model of, no, Italy is such a beauty, and it's so regional. I mean, you can be
Yeah.
from northern Italy and
That's
be
right.
completely different
That's
Italian
right.
than if you're Sicilian.
That's right.
I mean,
He
and
was
that's
Napolitan. He was from Naples.
yeah, he's from Naples. Yeah, I mean, just such. I
Beautiful.
mean, that's more coastal, right? If
Yeah.
I remember right.
Yes.
And so I thought, yeah, it's such
So-
an interesting study of that's such a Mediterranean
Yes.
influence then
So
into
beautiful.
that plays. Yeah, just a lot of different, with that. But
So, okay, Ben.
yeah, yeah,
We have a few minutes left, so what we're going to do is play your final song, and then we'll let
Right.
you talk about it, and then I'll give you final words.
great.
Here
Yeah,
we go.
okay.
If you owned a white dress and I had land in Spain, all your favorite colors tattooed on my skin. We believe in love with no sin. Spinning around with red wine in your hands. Spinning around with flowers in your hands. If I was a paintbrush and canvas was your skin, paint you in flowers over and over again. Tempt my heart and then seduce my soul. You whisper to me you can never go. Spinning around with red wine in your hands. Spinning around with flowers in your hands. Spinning around with red wine in your hands. Spinning around with flowers in your hands. Spinning around with my heart in your hands.
So that's my favorite as an artist. You
A
mentioned
lot
the
of people's,
canvas. You
yeah, it's
mentioned
a
the
lot of,
canvas, okay?
yeah.
Tell me
It's a
about
lot of
this song.
people's. That is my number one song ever, as
Oh,
far as streams go. That one, Road Song was doing it for a while, and that one is just blown up.
I
And
believe it.
yeah, it's when I got done, I recorded that, and it was really late. I got done at like midnight recording that one night, and my wife was in the room, and the producer said, "I think we got the take." He's like, "I think that's a good song." My wife said, in other words, she said, "There's going to be a lot of babies born to that song." Is what she said, because of how it turned out. So that's my wife used other terms, but since we're on a
Yes,
podcast
yes,
here,
I
we'll say
get
that.
it.
Yeah, but yeah, I wrote that. That's all Hemingway. That's all from Who the Bell Tolls and all those Hemingway stories of. I wrote it of imagine this worn, torn area that's just there's bombs, there's bullets, and you sneak away in a metaphor down below the bridge with your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, with a bottle of wine, and war is not present at that moment. There's no stress going on. It's just seduction, it's love, it's dance, it's wine, it's food, and it's that letting go of all worries and all you have is love at that moment. So you're able to let go of everything that's negative around you and just have that time with your partner. So the lyrics go, I'd paint you in flowers. If I was a paintbrush and tattoo and canvas was your
Canvas, yeah.
skin, I'd paint you in flowers over and over again. Because you want to paint that love on your partner. It's not necessarily about body painting. It is
Right,
just
right.
the metaphor for love with that partner. And very, very it's funny, we were just talking about Italy, before that in Spain, and I took part of that song from Dublin Blues by Guy Clark. He has a reference of that. He has a line in there that also says, "And I was too stubborn to come in from the rain." In Dublin Blues, it's just like always. I was like, "Oh my God, what a line!" And I was like, Ben, if you're gonna try to bat up with that song, you better hit something on there, like with lyrics that do that. And that song's done. And it's my really good friend from college that's singing backup vocals on there. That's Katie. I ended up going to college because of her. She convinced me at a party at 1 o'clock in the morning in high school to go to college with her. And that's how I ended up going to college. Her brother John is playing bass on there and stand-up bass.
Oh,
That's who I played and
beautiful.
toured with in high school. And like none of that was
Beautiful.
planned when I wrote this song. And then Wes, when I called Wes and said we got the track done, he said, "Well, what kind of fiddle do you want on that?" And I was like, "Well, I want you to play Stefan Grappelli, who's an Italian violinist, you know." And luckily, Wes is a classical trained violinist, and that's where that fiddle or that violin came through. So that song just creates this weaving of journey of
Wow.
imagination in it. And so there's a bowed bass in it, there's a stand up bass in it, and your ears and your senses. This is what I take from it. Your ears and your senses and the lyrics in there, they're so seductive. It just pulls on your whole soul
Wow.
and just needs it like bread, you know, like it's just this
That's
needing of
beautiful.
it, you know, and the art of that song. That's just a pure art song
Yeah, yeah,
to me. Like
beautiful.
it was meant to be an art piece, is what it was meant to be, is a sculpture.
So,
So
Ben, I'm going to give you the mic. I want you to tell
yeah,
everyone how to reach out to you, your social media, everything, anything you
yeah.
want them to know. It's yours.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll take from this, and I think we've talked about it too, is if you have kids and you have somebody around you that wants to listen to music, explore it with them,
Yep.
because you never know what that does to their creativity. You never know, you know, if they're listening to Bach and you hate classical music, you don't know if that's what they're going to study to, if they're wanting to be in math or wanting to be in science. But I think with any of the arts with kids, if anybody takes this from me, is always support them in the arts. Always support them in it, because we're close in this country to losing that.
Beautiful.
And I think it's something to pay. And I'm not being political, but we're really close to losing
Yep.
artistic value in
Yes.
this culture we're in now. And so I think if you have a child that's interested in it, do it. Support it in any way you can.
Yes.
Sidewalk chalk to
Yes.
paint to anything. It just and not and it's always support. And instead of telling them what they did wrong, ask them why they did that. Why are you painting something dark? Why are you painting? It's not necessarily there's something wrong with them. It may be the vision in their head, you know? And so that would be my one message from this. I hope everybody takes the way to get hold of me is my webpage is Ben Garcia Music. I'm on Instagram. That's Ben Garcia Music. I'm on Facebook. That's Ben Garcia Music. My music's on Spotify. It's on Amazon. It's on all the different streamings, YouTube channel. I've got a new song coming out tomorrow or Friday called Sweet and True. I didn't send it to you because it doesn't come out till Friday, but that literally is a song I'm so excited about. It's a different style song than what we just played completely.
Email it
It's
to me
way,
when it's out,
I
and I'll
will.
put it in
Yeah, I
your
will.
folder.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a pure country song, but I wrote it on the aspect of somebody that's working. Like if you've ever had a physical job where you're like working on an oil rig, working on a construction site, working somewhere doing something, and you work that physical job all week and you're so excited to get to the end of the week because you just get to see your wife. You just get to see your partner. And that's why I wrote that song. It's called Sweet and True about. So that comes out this weekend. And so that will be out. We've got YouTube, we've got videos on there. This will be up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, I think. But and then shows, we're touring. I typically train dogs for 6 weeks, take 3 weeks off to tour and go play shows. And then we're back to work for 6 weeks, tour, and then winners tour a little bit more. So those shows are always on our webpage
Okay.
or on our socials. But catch a show, come out and say hi. I was somebody like, come to a show and introduce yourself to me. Like, let's talk.
Yep.
Let's have a water or a beer, whatever you want to do. But like, I always love hearing people's stories. Like,
Yep.
what does the song mean to you? Like, what did
Yep.
you like about that music? Like, that's, I think, the best part about being an artist is hearing, as long as it's positive. You don't have some, I mean, I don't want the drunk coming up and telling me what he thinks
No,
about
of
music. You
course.
know, I've dealt with that. You know, I mean, if it's constructive and it's feelings, or they have a story to go with that, you know, what it means to somebody. That's why I put this time into it. I hope somebody has something else they feel within that music. I hope my music, it's not ambient sound, it's not background noise.
Right.
I want somebody to really think about what we're writing about and what we're doing, you know, and that,
Beautiful.
you know, yeah,
So, Ben, first of all, I want to thank you for honoring me with this show,
absolutely.
because I got to tell
Yeah.
you, this is probably going to be one of my favorite shows.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
not kidding you. The
Oh,
way
thank
you
you.
explained everything and described things, and our conversation was priceless. So I
Yeah.
want to
And
thank
this is
you.
our second great conversation. We had another one
That's
about
right.
Elvis and Jerry Lewis that
That's right. We
if we could
did.
hit record, it was one of my top
That
fun
we did.
historical conversations
Yes.
too. Yeah.
But on
Yeah.
air, I didn't expect this. And this is
Okay.
beautiful.
Thank you.
So my door is always open to you.
Yeah. And thanks for
Um,
having this space. I mean, thanks for having this. This
this
is a
is
great
amazing.
format you have. Yeah.
Yes, I love
So,
getting
yeah.
people noticed. No matter, guys, anyone out there listening, I don't just interview entertainers. I interview anyone up and coming, even authors, artists, anyone in the business that you want to get noticed. Everyone has a
Right.
right to have their voice heard. Reach out to me, okay? So,
Yeah.
Ben, thank you, sweetheart. I mean,
Yes.
I
Thank you.
can't thank you
Yeah.
enough. This was amazing.
We'll have to do a part 2 on Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis
Okay.
and my, my Carl Perkins,
All
Jerry
right, so
Lee
do
Lewis
me a favor.
obsession. Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to
So,
do it. Do me a favor though, because I'll forget. I want
yeah.
you to
I'll
message
text
me.
you. Yeah.
Text me this week and say let's do part 2 and say everything you just said, and I will
Right.
get you a July date. Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
booked till. I mean it.
I will.
Okay.
Trust me,
All
I will.
right,
Yeah,
Ben.
absolutely. All right, darling. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Take
for having
us
me.
out,
Yeah.
producer.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is it really true? Is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time.